Seika was an S-rank exorcist who was betrayed and assassinated for being too overpowered. When he reincarnated, he decided to live a boring, neat life like yours, but when he discovered that the hero was a baddie, he decided to clap her and her enemies for fun.
Turn around for a second.
Yeah, boy.
Before his reincarnation, Seika achieved his dream of becoming the most powerful exorcist in the world, which allowed him to clap all monsters that appeared before him. However, his life came crumbling down when he became too powerful, so the humans sent his favorite student to unalive him. But before she could, he isekai'd himself with hopes of living a better life in the new world. After he was reborn in a chibi form, his new father did a magic aptitude test on him, and after seeing that none of the magic stones representing the elements glowed, he concluded that Seika lacked any form of magic power, causing his brothers to start mocking him. However, Seika knew his body secretly had the same incredible spiritual powers that he had in his past life. This allowed him to turn a bunch of leaves he gathered into spiritual animals called shikigami, which helped him fight off his brother Glai when he came by to bully him. Despite the fact that everyone in the mansion treated him like an outcast based on the fact that he was born from a mistress, Seika was secretly producing magic materials, and one day, his manufacturing process was interrupted when a slave girl named Yifa came by to return his clothes which she found in the bushes. He was disarming her with his riz before Glai interrupted them just to mock Seika for being a no-magic waste of space that'll probably rot in the mansion. He added that he'd soon be going to a prestigious magic academy to become a mage, and since Seika had no chance of entering such a place, he'd be happy to take him along as his personal slave. Just then, their father came by, and when he told Glai to follow him for their magic training, Seika asked to join them. During the training, Glai and his brother Ruft took turns to destroy the stone targets with their magic. Glai wanted to humiliate Seika, so he asked him to give it a shot, to which he obliged despite promising to be an NPC. He then used a secret spiritual chant to create a blue fireball which destroyed his own stone target, causing everyone's jaws to drop to the floor. However, when Seika told his father that he wanted to learn magic, his father refused. Over the next couple of years, Seika devoted himself to his magic studies and lived a peaceful life in the mansion while his father secretly spied on him. One night, he decided it was time to summon his first Ayakashi, which served him in his old world. The summoning ritual ended in a success as a girl named Yuki appeared from the portal and transformed into a baby wolf form that would allow her to always be with Seika while hiding from everyone around. The next day, Yifa bumped into Glai and spilled water on him like he peed on himself, making him so mad that he wanted to punish her by practicing how to use his wand with her.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal.
Luckily, Seika showed up to ruin his clapping plans, so Glai tried to throw a punch at him, which he easily caught like a 2-gram frisbee. Later on, Seika followed Yifa to the garden where she showed him a magic bunny that was at death's door. After Seika healed the creature, he told Yifa that he knew about her ability to see spirits and offered her a chance to practice magic by commanding a flame elemental he summoned. After a bit of struggle, Yifa got the job done, so Seika offered to train her. Months passed, and even though it was Seika's birthday, no one celebrated him just like the years before since he was an illegitimate child. Although he didn't care, Glai used the opportunity to roast him for being a consequence of their dad's weak pull-out game. He also mocked him for being an Estate Pro Max and offered to improve his magic, but Ruft stopped Glai and said Seika could still become a swordsman and get sent to the army if magic doesn't work out. As they talked, some maids interrupted them to report that a monster called an Elder Newt had appeared in the area. When the Elder Newt reached their mansion, Seika immediately ran into action, but was stunned that Yifa didn't chicken out, but instead, she repelled the monster with a flame barrier. This made Seika wonder if she did it consciously or the spirits protected her of their own free will. He then baited the monster which chased after him, sending him flying, and just when Ruft thought he was a goner, he mixed a poison and flame attack spell that paralyzed the monster, after which he tamed it. Meanwhile, everyone sang his praise for one-shotting the monster. His father also happened to watch as he aura farmed and even hosted a feast for dinner just to celebrate him. That evening, everyone glazed Seika at the dinner table, apart from Glai, who was drowning in jealousy. Their father offered to reward Seika for his efforts, so Seika humbly asked to be enrolled in the Ladonia Magic Academy as a way of using his magic to benefit the Empire. The father agreed, but stated that he had to pass the exam on his own because their family's name doesn't grant them special entry into the academy. Seika agreed, but threw a curveball by making a second request, which was to have Yifa accompany him as a servant. His father disagreed because he thought Yifa had no magical talent, so Seika told Yifa to cast a flame spell if she wanted to go with him. Her determination to leave the mansion with her Riz King was so strong that she cast a flame spell that was stronger than anything Ace ever did in one piece, leaving the father no choice but to agree to Seika's request. This only made Glai enraged since only one son could attend the academy. He claimed he had more right than the failure and the slave. However, his father told him to use his physical strength and swordsmanship in the army instead because he didn't train as much as Seika did to hone his skills over the years. This ticked Glai off so much that he challenged Seika to a duel over who gets to go to the academy. And since they were all on board with the idea, their father stated that the duel would take place the next day, but without the use of real swords or any high-ranking magic spell. Later that evening, Seika got a surprise visit from Glai, who blew through his window using a wind spell and demanded to have the duel with him. Seika joined him on the outside of the castle where Glai said he was scrapping all of the rules their father set and claimed that it was a battle until one of them was KO'd, with the added condition that Seika would tell their father that he's forfeiting their match the next day if he loses. The battle began when Glai tried to barbecue Seika using a flame tornado spell, but that didn't even leave a scar on Seika, and the wind attack he followed up with couldn't penetrate Seika's magic barrier as well. Seika effortlessly blocked all of Glai's attack spams before using a powerful spell to stop Glai from moving from the spot he was standing. While Glai was paralyzed, Seika tortured him using voodoo tactics and told him to forfeit the duel the following day as he passed out. While Glai was out cold, Seika remembered his doofus brother's whinings about how he was lucky the monster showed up on his birthday. But it was funny to him because the Elder Newt showing up was something he'd planned 6 months ago by telling a servant he summoned to chase that monster to the city on that very day. Yuki brought up how Seika was an overpowered king who could trample over all weak humans, so Seika reminded her that he was destroyed in the real world by weak humans, and said he planned on living smartly among the masses this time. When spring came, Seika and Yifa said their goodbyes to Luft as they left for the academy. On the way, Seika gave Yifa a special necklace which he claimed would draw spirits to her and help her get stronger. At the same time, his father was doing some studying when he got a flashback of how Seika was brought to him as a baby by a mysterious lady who revealed that he was the son of his brother Gilbert, an adventurer who went missing in demon territory. He knew that having black hair and black eyes was a rarity in their country, so he initially feared that Seika could actually be the son of a demon and not Gilbert. But his fears were cleansed when he saw that Seika couldn't use magic. He observed that the attacks Seika used were more spiritual than magical, and this motivated him to put Seika in the academy and not the army so that he could become a hero that could protect the nation instead of an evil overlord. When Seika and Yifa arrived at the academy, Seika noticed there was a stagnant pool of mana in the area, but didn't let that stop him from moving ahead. They met an examiner who told them to place their hand on a crystal ball which had the ability to measure their magic power and glow with a color that signifies their magic aptitude. Yifa placed her hand on the crystal, and it revealed that she had an affinity for wind and fire magic. However, when Seika placed his hand on the crystal, it didn't react, so he revealed to her that he didn't have any magical power and asked to take the exam despite his situation. Suddenly, a loudmouth commander named Amiyu walked by and placed her hand on the crystal, causing it to glow in a wild manner that revealed she had affinity for all 4 elements. Seika tried to thank her for shifting the attention of the crowd from his performance, but she replied that the academy was no place for a magicless pile of meat and warned him not to get in her way during the exam. Seika realized that she was someone he knew very well in his previous life, with the only difference being that her hair color had changed to red. Several hours later, the examinees sat for the written exam, and afterwards, Yifa told Seika that she made a lot of mistakes in the test, so he comforted her by saying she could make up for it in the practical exam. Just then, Amiyu walked by and Seika noticed that she was carrying a sword, so he got hyped to see how strong she was. When it was time for the practical exam, The examiner told the mages who were lined up for the test that they needed to aim for a target which they'd unleash their magic on, and revealed that they got points for each target they hit among the pile of targets lined up. The dumb-looking NPCs in the area started letting it rip with their elemental spells, and Seika realized that they weren't doing very well in the test because their attacks were weak. Fortunately, that story changed when it was Yifa's turn, because she destroyed her target using a mid-class flame magic spell, leaving the examiner in a state of shock because he knew the target she went for had fire resistance. Yifa moved on to the next target and drilled some holes in it using a mid-rank wind spell before apologizing to the examiner for ruining the targets. When it was Seika's turn, everyone around instantly counted him out because of his lack of magic, but he wasted no time to prove his haters wrong by obliterating his first target using a blue flame ball spell, which left them absolutely shocked. He moved on to the next target and noticed that it was made of granite, so he pulled off a wild spell from his aura farming bag of tricks that made pillars of gold sprout from within the target, making the audience lose their minds even more. The examiner asked him to explain the previous spell he did, but Seika knew none of their Smurf-sized brains could comprehend the Walter White level of spiritual cooking he did, so he made up some random nonsense and moved on to the next target. For the third target, he used a flying paper doll he made to cast a spell which froze the entire area, leaving everyone completely stunned as he walked back to Yifa. She asked why he didn't hit more targets, so he revealed that he could only use those 3 spells since wind wasn't one of his original 5 elements in the real world, and he was yet to figure out light and dark magic. Some hours later, the examiner was approached by his colleague named Karen at the exam site, and he told her about all the craziness he witnessed from Seika and Yifa before bringing up how Amiyu had an even wilder display of power as she became the first person to destroy all the targets with different elements. Karen revealed that Amiyu was her student and presumed that she could be the hero, which was stated by legends to be the one to defeat the soon-to-be-revived Demon King. By the next day, posters were mounted which contained the names of people who passed the exam, and Seika noticed that he was ranked 3rd among the students who succeeded. Yifa heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that her name appeared in 2nd place, but Seika was feeling salty about the fact that he got outclassed by his own student. The first place in the rankings was none other than Amiyu, and this made Seika pleased because it confirmed that he found who he was looking for. Several days after the announcement, an official invitation letter was sent to Seika and Yifa, informing them that they were officially enrolled into the academy. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Seika and Yifa were fully dripped up in the academy's uniform as they strolled into school together. But their romantic walk was interrupted when they saw some dark elementals gathering up in the nearby forest. When they went into the forest to investigate, they saw a suspicious-looking magic circle that was drawn on the ground. Yifa asked what they should do about it, and Seika replied that it was better they leave it alone since it was the school property, but he secretly sent some paper shikigami of own to investigate the area. During dinner time, Seika and Yifa were stuffing their faces with some of the 5-star meals that were laid out for them when Amiyu took the stage to introduce herself as the first-year rep. She started yapping about how she aimed to grow stronger to defeat monsters, but Seika couldn't focus on her speech because he noticed that the mysterious magic circle had activated. Suddenly, a horde of lesser demons broke into the room, and Seika immediately noticed that they were looking for something. A group of students tried to fight them off, but their attacks didn't do anything to the demons, so Seika decided to intervene with a hidden spiritual attack. However, Amiyu beat him to the punch as she saved the students with slick moves before engaging the demons in combat. Seika watched from a corner and noticed that the demons were acting like they were generated using ChatGPT, so he used his paper shikigami to fish out the caster who sent the demons. Within minutes, he arrived at the forest where the master of the demons named Gull was hiding out, and the two of them exchanged slurs before the demon summoned some more of his servants to attack Seika. This only allowed Seika to show off some more elite aura farming moves as he pulverized 2 attacking demons with a single wave of a hand before sealing the third one into a pocket dimension as a souvenir. Gull decided to face him head-on, and Seika tried to take him out using his usual paper shikigami attacks, but the demon boss easily shrugged off his attacks. Afterwards, Gull sent a huge flying blade at him, and his efforts to dodge proved useless as Gull used teleportation to change the course of the blade, allowing it to slightly scratch him on the chin. Gull followed up with a flame attack, and Saika leapt into the air in an attempt to dodge, but Gull pulled off a shocker by appearing behind him and slashing his arm off. When Saika asked Gull what he was after, Gull said he was there to capture Amiyu, who he believed was the hero before absolutely annihilating Saika with a rain of blades and slashing his head off. Gull started walking away, but Saika suddenly reappeared looking completely unscathed. Gull attempted to unalive him again by throwing a blade at his head, but Saika instantly revived, causing the demon to create an even bigger rain of swords as he swore to take down Saika as well as Amiyu. Saika dodged his swords by leaping into the air and tried to drown him using a large water spell, but Gull escaped using teleportation. He appeared behind Saika in an attempt to pull another surprise attack, but Saika summoned a lightning wolf that fired 1,000,000 jolts of electricity at him. Saika thought it was over, but Gull appeared behind him and punched a hole through his body. Fortunately, this was all part of Saika's plan as he caused a point-blank explosion that got the demon to his knees. When Gull got back up, Saika summoned his dragon, which turned him into dinner. Suddenly, the dragon tried to run away, so Saika commanded it to come back and created a ceiling portal which intercepted it as it charged towards him. When Saika got back to the school hall, Yifa informed him that Amiyu defeated all the lesser demons, so he decided to make her the strongest person in the world and become her friend as a way of achieving his goal of living a safe life in this new world. A month later, Saika was walking to school with Yifa, and he tried to kickstart his plan by greeting Amiyu in a friendly way, but she blew him off in the harshest way possible before leaving, making him realize that he had no idea how to make friends. All of a sudden, a barrel of chemicals came flying above them, and Saika managed to get himself and Yifa away in time using substitution jutsu. The one who dumped the chemicals by mistake was their teacher Cordell, and he apologized before explaining that the chemical that nearly spilled on them was a catalyst for his research. Saika asked why he was trying to levitate it, so Cordell explained that he was trying to take his concoction to the floor above them, but couldn't do it successfully because he was skilled at light magic and not dark magic. This made sense to Saika because he knew that dark magic controlled things like gravity, time and space, while light magic was only good at manipulating light and lightning. But he was suspicious of him because it was rare for someone to have an affinity for both kinds of magic. Some minutes later, they were in a class led by Karen, and after concluding her lecture, she informed the students that they'd be celebrating the anniversary the following week, which required the help of their top students Amiyu and Yifa. Amiyu asked what they'd be doing, so she revealed that they'd be asked to go into Ladonia Forest to deliver the new student roster as an offering at the temple there. Given the fact that the forest she was talking about was where Saika destroyed Gull, he asked to go in Yifa's stead, and his gaslighting was so solid that they couldn't disagree with his request. After class, he apologized to Yifa for taking her spot and explained that he was doing it to help Amiyu since her heroics during the demon attack got her more haters than friends. Yifa asked if he was into her, but he replied that he only wanted to be her friend because of the power she possessed, so she agreed to help him on his task. On the day of the ceremony, Amiyu and Saika were handed the roster, and they walked through the forest while arguing over whether or not Selka used Diddy moves on Yifa at nights until Amiyu got a sudden headache. What caused this headache was a magic circle nearby, and when they went to investigate, it expanded and transported both of them into a strange underground tunnel where they were instantly attacked by some demons. Without wasting any time, Amiyu bodied all 3 monsters using moves she learnt from Demon Slayer. But before she could take a victory lap, a giant orc appeared behind her and tried to crush her with its weapon. Fortunately, Saika cast a spell which saved her by creating a giant wooden stake that crushed the orc's head into the roof. When they realized they were in a dungeon, Saika suggested they stay somewhere until help came for them. But Amiyu argued that it would be better for them to find an exit since the survival rate in dungeons was very low. Saika started spreading some paper shikigami on the roof of the tunnels, and when Yuki asked why he was doing it, he said it was because he wanted the shikigami he left at the surface to detect their location and lead them to an exit. Just then, a group of large orcs showed up and Amiyu tried to take them out herself, but it didn't take long before they knocked her to the ground. Seika came in for the rescue by destroying a bunch of them using his wooden stake attack and then waiting until Amiyu went unconscious before summoning a giant centipede that ripped the remaining orcs to shreds. When Amiyu woke up, Seika put up a barrier around them that nullified curses, and this cured Amiyu's headache for the moment. He asked her when the symptoms started, and she revealed that it began when she first got to school, but also said that she didn't believe it was from a curse since she didn't have any curse sigils on her. Seika brought up the fact that there were places on her body she couldn't see herself, and despite the fact that she was flustered, she let him check her back for any curses. Weirdly, there were no curse sigils to be found, and Amiyu once again argued that the headaches weren't caused by a curse since the caster needed to be beside the victim for curses to work. But Seika replied that curses could be cast remotely. Seika wrapped a strand of her hair in a paper doll, which he said would be a substitute for her if they leave the barrier. Amiyu changed the subject by suggesting that he and Yifa were bedroom buddies, but Seika said they were more like family instead. She expressed that it was ridiculous for a noble and a slave to be like family, so he explained that Yifa was the only one who didn't treat him like dog feces at home based on the fact that he was the son of a mistress. However, the truth was that Seika didn't want to get emotionally attached to anyone because even in that life, he didn't trust people. When he asked about her family, she revealed that her mother was an important person in the guild and that her dad was still an adventurer. He noticed that she didn't like talking about her family, so he decided to switch topics by asking what she liked doing. Amiyu replied that she loved fighting and gave him a whole backstory about how everyone, including her parents, thought she was crazy for loving deadly battles more than anything else. Furthermore, she revealed that she came to the academy to get stronger, because she believed that getting stronger than everybody would make fighting boring for her, allowing her to be a normal person. However, she doubted that it was possible because she had a lot of fun during the battles in the dungeons so far. Seika replied that he didn't feel she was a freak because she was created for a battle-obsessed world that would soon become reality. After a bit more bonding, Seika and Amiyu continued their journey and took down several more monsters in their path until they arrived at the dungeon boss room where they saw a huge monster called a Naga. The two of them charged at the Naga and Sokka started off by firing some wood spells at it, which it tanked before blasting him with some acid from its mouth. After dodging the acid attack, he used some metal spells which held the monster in place with huge nails, allowing Amiyu to finish it off with a flame spell and a vicious sword strike. After the battle, they found a special sword which was sealed in the dungeon, so Seika handed it to Amiyu and took a magic ring as a souvenir for himself. After they left the dungeon, Seika confronted Cordell about the recent events, including the invasion of the school by Gull and the dungeon incident, and accused him of being the one behind all of it. He asked Cordell to reveal his true form, but Cordell said he didn't have any because he was simply a human spy who worked for the demons with the aim of taking out the hero. Cordell started bragging about the curse he created using the catalyst from earlier, which was the real cause of Amiyu's deadly headaches, but Seika ruined his party by revealing that his curse now affected a paper doll he created instead of Amiyu. Apparently, the curse worked on people who were covered in demon blood, and since Amiyu was covered in demon blood during the invasion, it previously targeted her until their encounter that morning where Seika had a paper doll covered in demon blood as well. Sokka pulled an odd move by ripping apart the demon he previously sealed, causing the blood to spill all over himself, which made him the prime target of the curse. He used a spirit incantation to transfer the curse into Cordell's body, and power walked away as dumb spy bled to death. The next day, Seika gave the magic ring to Yifa and told her she could keep it since it granted her the power to gather even more elemental spirits around her. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Seika and Yifa were getting some food when the vice principal showed up and informed them that they were to meet with the principal the following evening. When they got to the principal's office the following day, they saw that their principal looked like a dwarf that escaped from the Snow White movie, and Seika expressed his surprise that a demihuman was leading a magic academy, so she corrected him by saying he should refer to her as a demon, causing him to apologize for his rudeness. She asked them to enter a mixed disciplines combat tournament being held in the capital, along with a freshman named Mabel who entered the office at that moment. She mentioned that their academy was given 2 slots in the tournament, implying that Mabel had already taken one of them before asking which of them would like to take the second slot. When they told Amiu about this, she first whined over the fact that she wasn't chosen before asking why they decided to add their magic academy to the tournament that year unlike other years. Yifa explained that the rules that year had changed and magic was now allowed in the tournament, which allowed them to give their academy some slots in order to try and boost their reputation. Amiu asked why they decided not to choose her, so Saker revealed that the principal decided he and Yifa were better based on a gut decision and guessed that it was because the school didn't want to send their strongest fighter out of fear of losing her if she gets scouted by the royal guards. They continued their discussion while strolling on the schoolyard, and Amiu presumed that the reason they added Mabel to the tournament was because they wanted to add a tournament appearance to her resume, which would make it easier for her to get a high-ranking job in the government. She predicted that Mabel would forfeit early on in the tournament out of fear of not wanting to get hurt because she'd never experienced any hardship. Suddenly, Mabel interrupted her by angrily claiming that Amiu was the one who had never experienced any hardship. When Amiu confronted her about it, Mabel straight up called her a spoiled brat, and with a cold expression on her face, she said she wasn't selected because she was weak. In response, Amiu decided to have a sword duel with her, and all it took was one glance at Mabel's sword stance to make Saker realize that she was every bit as skilled as Amiu. Yifa asked Saker if they should stop the duel before it starts, but he replied that there was no point in doing so because he secretly wanted to assess Mabel's abilities for himself. When the duel began, Amiu charged at Mabel, but her attack was easily parried away. The 2 ladies clashed fiercely, but it didn't take long before Mabel broke Amiu's sword and had her on the ground. After the fight, Mabel tried to power walk away, but Amiu called out the fact that she used magic to enhance her attack despite the fact that it was against the rules of their duel, and Saker realized that Mabel is a user of dark magic. Mabel said the fact that Amiu wanted a second chance meant that she was weak and told Saker and Yifa to forfeit the tournament if they weren't willing to take it seriously. A while after that, Saker was in a carriage with Mabel headed for the tournament, and they were surprisingly joined by Yifa and Amiu. When Saker brought up the fact that Amiu didn't receive permission from the school to join their ride, she said it didn't matter because she wanted to see the capital for the first time, when in reality, she just wanted to see how Mabel fights. When they got to the capital, the girls were excited to explore the area, but Saker was already worn out due to his carriage sickness. They noticed that Mabel had left them, but decided to head to the tournament grounds to see the pairings. A few hours later, they arrived at the tournament grounds where they saw that Saker was fated to face Mabel in the semi-finals if he wins every match beforehand. After they finished checking the match board, Saker told the girls to go exploring the city while he headed back to the inn alone. When they left, he revealed his real goal, which was to look into why the academy chose Mabel over Amiu. On the day of the tournament, the MC revealed the rules of the game, which was that the way to beat your opponent was to incapacitate them, make them surrender, or destroy an amulet which every competitor was carrying. She introduced Saker as the first contestant and announced that his opponent was a thuggish sword user named Dennis. Dennis started bad-mouthing Saker before the match even began, but once the bell rang, Saker tricked Dennis into thinking he stabbed him, only to appear behind him and deliver a brutal magic attack that yeeted him into the stands. Saker was declared the winner, but he was worried because he knew his attack could have unalived Dennis if he wanted to. On the way back to his inn, Yuki warned him that he was standing out too much and using too many shikigami at once, but he said it was necessary for his secret mission. The next day, Saker sat with Yifa and Amiu to watch the match between a skilled wizard named Belem and a mysterious man named Kyle. When the match began, Kyle used a move that paralyzed Belem completely before destroying him in a bloody manner that left the entire crowd stunned. Saker saw that he remained expressionless even after leaving poor Belem as a bloody donut, and this made him realize that he was an experienced assassin who was part of a group of special people that existed in his previous life called the Bearers of the Evil Eye. The next day, Seika took the stage for his next match, which was against a mage named Labenair who bragged about her giant golem, which was built for anti-magic combat. When the match officially began, Seika summoned a spirit called Sickle Weasel that ripped the golem apart in the blink of an eye, leaving Labenair no choice but to surrender. After the battle, Seika told Yuki he was relieved because summoners weren't allowed in the tournament, meaning if he was caught using an Ayakashi, he'd be disqualified immediately. When he rejoined the girls at the stands, Amiyu asked if he intended to join the Royal Guards if he wins the tournament, but he said he'd refuse and assured them that he'd be fine through the rest of the tournament. The next match was Mabel going up against a powerful earth mage called Howlo, and despite the fact that Mabel easily breezed through the first round of the tournament, Seika was eager to see how she'd fare in that match. When the battle began, Howlo fired several rock attacks at Mabel, but she sliced through them easily, forcing him to switch gears and start chanting for an even more powerful magic spell. Mabel wasn't willing to give him any time at all to finish his incantation, so she destroyed his rock shield with a dagger, forcing him to create several more rock shields, which she easily destroyed as well. Yifa couldn't understand Mabel's attacks, so Seika explained that she was using gravity magic to make her daggers 100 times heavier, allowing them to break through Howl's rocks easily. After destroying all of his rock shields, Mabel knocked Howlo's wand away, forcing him to surrender. The MC announced her as the winner while calling her the red-haired hero, and this confused Seika, so Amiyu revealed that the second hero to ever exist was called Mabel. That evening, a demon spy sent a letter to a messenger pigeon, but it was intercepted by one of Seika's Shikigami as he walked into the scene to confront him. The spy tried to land a surprise attack on Seika, but Seika tied him up with some magical vines before his attack could land. When Seika asked him to reveal what he was going to report to the demons, he refused, so Seika decided to ask his soul directly by summoning a monkey spirit called Satori. Apparently, Satori was an Ayakashi with the ability to read minds, and the spy realized he was cooked when Satori started reciting every word he was about to say before he even said it. Seika once again asked who he was reporting to, but this time when he refused to answer the question, Satori revealed that it was a demon called Baal Bofis. When Sokka asked who Baal's boss was, the spy didn't even need to utter a word before Satori called out the name Fel Marquis El Edentrad. After extracting some other information from him, which suggested that they were spying on a hero, Seika asked which hero they were spying on, and Satori revealed that it was Mabel. When he asked why they thought Mabel was the hero, Satori said it was because her birth year matches the prophecy and also has the same physical attributes as the hero. After the interrogation, Seika rewarded Satori by letting him feast on the spy, but when Satori playfully reads Seika's mind, he threatened to unalive him with a cold expression on his face. After sending Satori back into his seal, he called the other Shikigami which intercepted the spy's message, and when he tried to read the message, he realized that it was written in a unique code that he couldn't understand. However, Seika was satisfied because he already realized the school's plan, which was to have the false hero Mabel win the tournament and gain the attention of the demons, while the real hero Amiyu stays safe. Seika also had his suspicions about Mabel's background being fake, but he chose not to look into her because he was happy about the fact that her presence made Amiyu safe. The next day, Kyle, the evil eye user, won his next match easily, and a man named Reincarnates who could use all 4 main elements advanced easily as well. Seika's third round opponent was a necromancer who he easily defeated with a sinking sand spell, and Mabel also stormed through her next match without breaking a sweat. Afterwards, she met up with Seika and asked him to forfeit their 1v1 match in the semifinals. Seika refused and said she needed to win him fair and square, but she argued that she might not be able to hold back during their match because she couldn't afford to lose. However, Seika insisted on facing her in the semis, and the MC announced that the first semi-final match, which was between Kyle and Reincarnates, would hold that day because of the fact that both of their preceding matches ended in a forfeit win. When the match began, Reincarnates immediately fortified himself using a light magic spell that gave him resistance to the evil eye. But Kyle marched towards him without a care in the world. Reincarnates started spamming all forms of magic attacks at Kyle, but all of them had zero impact because Kyle was using gravity magic to make himself heavy enough to tank the attacks. Out of desperation, Reincarnates created some stone golems, but Kyle immediately demolished them with dark shadow magic. When Reincarnates attempted to put him down from close range, Kyle held him in place using shadow magic, and just when Kyle was about to land the finishing blow, the whistle blew, which meant that the judges had declared Kyle as the winner. That evening, Seika was chilling in bed with Yuki when Mabel suddenly tried to ambush him with a gravity attack. When he dodged, they took the fight outside, and she tried several more times to unalive him, but Seika stylishly dodged all of her best moves. Mabel took advantage of a distraction by a drunk old man to flee from the area, but unfortunately for her, Seika decided that he would spend the night playing around with her. Several minutes later, Mabel was standing outside her apartment when Seika came by and claimed that he only wanted to talk to her. He said he'd consider changing his mind about her offer if she told him what was troubling her. She revealed that she was only trying to injure him so he would forfeit their final match the next day and claimed that she wouldn't lose if they fought for real. She once again asked him to forfeit because she wouldn't be able to hold back against him and didn't want him to die by her hands. He interrupted her speech by pointing out the real reason she was at the tournament was to win and become a fake hero to draw the demon's attention. He promised to forfeit if she revealed her other reason for wanting to win, but she dropped a bombshell by revealing that the actual job she had was to get unalived by Kyle in order to make the demons think the hero was dead. She revealed that the Rugrocks Merchant Association took slaves with potential and turned them into mercenaries and said she and Kyle were trained by that organization. She added that the most important objective of the organization was to test if Kyle had become the perfect mercenary and explained that they made mercenaries by implanting magic directly into the skull of their brain, which caused them to lose all forms of emotion. The Rugrocks Merchant Association operated by grouping their captured slaves into pairs of 4 and having one from each group become a perfect mercenary by unaliving his 3 partners as a final test. Mabel revealed that Kyle was the chosen one in her group, meaning that she was the last person who he had to destroy in order to become a perfect mercenary. However, Mabel said her goal was to end him in the finals as a form of revenge for unaliving her brother. Seika stunned her when he pointed out that Kyle was actually her older brother and that she dyed her hair red to look different even though their similar eyes were a dead giveaway. She told him about her brother's request before getting the surgery, which was for her to free him if he ever lost his mind, and said she fully intended to do so in the finals. She started yapping about how the organization would unalive her whether or not she defeated Kyle, so Seika changed his mind and decided to defeat Kyle in the finals instead. When she started yelling at him in disapproval, he told her to go back to the academy and assured her that he wouldn't let anyone harm her because he was the strongest guy around.
Daddy, chill.
However, she refused and said she'd use her full power during their match, so Seika said he'd prove to her that he's more broken than Gojo. The next day, Seika and Mabel stood across from each other on the battlefield and Seika was pleased to see that she was equipped with her main weapon, which was a large axe. When the match began, Mabel tried to destroy him using heavy strikes, but Seika dodged her attacks and Seika tied her up using magic vines, but she broke through easily before charging at him again. Unfortunately, her attack couldn't land because Seika used an incantation to make her weapon 1,000 times heavier than she could carry, and he wrapped her up using vines made of mercury. He picked up her axe using a spell that made it lighter and pointed it at her, causing the judges to declare him the winner of their duel. Hours later, both finalists were gathered at the arena and Seika tried to use Talk no Jutsu to get through to Kyle, but it had no effect, so he used a spell which covered the area in red smoke. Seika tried to finish him using flame attacks, but Kyle shrugged them off, so he used the mercury vines to tie him up. Unfortunately, Kyle wasn't a pushover like his sister, so he easily broke through the vines before firing a shadow attack at Seika, which was ultimately blocked by his force field. Seika summoned a large minotaur spirit which easily knocked him down with one swing of its weapon. Suddenly, some dark vines started appearing on Kyle's body, so Seika created a magic barrier around them to nullify the effect of the curse. Despite his efforts, Kyle was still dying, so he tried to figure out what was wrong before Kyle told him to apologize to Mabel on his behalf. Seika got angered by the fact that some low-rent Sukuna somewhere was trying to outdo him at curses, so he started chanting the words of a powerful spell which would bring Kyle back to life. Yuki pleaded with him not to proceed with it because it would showcase his power in a grand way that could have him unalived a second time, and this made him stop the chant. When the smoke cleared, all that was left of Kyle was a burn scar on the ground, and Seika explained Kyle's disappearance by saying he destroyed him without leaving a trace. What actually happened was that he transported Kyle's body to a separate space so he could get a proper burial. The next day, Mabel met up with Seika at Kyle's grave, and he revealed Kyle's final message to her, which was an apology about something called the four-leaf clover. With tears in her eyes, Mabel explained that he was talking about a four-leaf clover hairpin of hers which he accidentally broke before his surgery. She worried about what her next step was, so he told her to come back to school and assured her that he'd take care of any backlash that comes her way. Several hours later, Mabel and Amiyu had a friendly rematch, which Amiyu ended up winning by using the same gravity spell, which Mabel initially used to pull the rug from under her feet the last time. Meanwhile, Seika met the principal, who confessed that she made him go along with the tournament so he could save Mabel because she felt pity for her. Several days later, Seika and the girls were having lunch together and discussing their plans for the summer break, which was starting the next day. Seika said he was told by his father to investigate a dragon in the kingdom of Asteria, and Amiyu and Mabel wanted to go with him, but he told them to go home to their families instead. Just then, the prince of Asteria named Cecilio came by, accompanied by his elven guard named Lies, and introduced himself to Seika before revealing that he was just in the area to check out the Empire's magic academy while meeting him. When Cecilio saw Yifa, he fell in love with her instantly and stunned everyone around by asking her to be one of his wives. Yifa refused the offer by revealing that she was Seika's servant, causing Cecilio to ask Seika to name his price for her. Eventually, they went to a private room to continue their discussion, and Cecilio told Seika about the dragon of Asteria. The dragon used to live peacefully with the people of the kingdom, but recently it started acting strange by attacking crops and cattle. Seika was confused by the fact that the dragon lived peacefully with the people, so Cecilio revealed that according to the legend, the dragon was hatched from an egg by the Queen of Asteria many years ago. On his way back to his dorm room, Seika was dragged into the school garden by Amiyu and Mabel, who were curious to know if he really planned on giving Yifa away to Cecilio. Seika said he didn't want to, but claimed he'd be okay with it if she was interested in Cecilio, so the girls advised him not to tell Yifa what he just told them because it would definitely make her sad. 9 days later, Seika and Yifa arrived at the old capital of Asteria named Protoster, and Cecilio informed them that trade had gotten more difficult in the city since the dragon started attacking. Just then, the dragon started moving aggressively towards them, but it was scared off when an old mage summoned an armored tiger beast called a lava tiger to face it. Suddenly, the tiger tried to attack Yifa, so Seika saved her by trapping it in pillars of ice. Unfortunately, the tiger's armor was blazing hot, so it melted through the pillars easily before charging at Seika. Before it could properly get into battle with him, the caster, named Zekt, held it back using a magic leash and sent it away. Cecilio scolded him for summoning his tiger out of nowhere, so Zekt explained that the dragon had started attacking humans just like it nearly did with Yifa. The prince introduced Zekt to Seika as the head of the mercenary group he hired, and Sokka expressed that he couldn't understand why they were hiring mercenaries, so Cecilio revealed that his plan was to slay the dragon. Seika told him to reconsider because there was a possibility of the dragon leaving that realm to attack another country, causing Zekt to yell at him for doubting his abilities. After Zekt left, Seika asked if the queen and the people had agreed to his plan of slaying the dragon since the dragon was a symbol of their nation. Cecilio said the people would understand his decision and told Seika to stay out of their political matters, causing him to apologize for overstepping. When Yifa came by, Seika scolded her for not using magic to protect herself from the dragon, causing her to cry, and he finished up his lecture by telling her she needed to take action when she was in danger, even if it was by running to someone for help. Seika felt bad for her because he knew it was a normal thing to get paralyzed in fear. But at the same time, he knew he had to give her that push because in his previous life, he had students who were unalived because of their fear of monsters. The next day, Seika and Yifa were doing some research about the dragon in the library, and Seika found a book which revealed that the dragon was born several centuries ago. He read the story which revealed that 2 dragons lived in Asteria a long time ago and gave birth to children, but eventually started attacking the kingdom because magical power alone wasn't enough to feed them. When Yifa asked what happened to the dragon's children, Seika revealed that they left the nest after growing up and added that the female dragon eventually died 50 years later. Seika suddenly decided to go to the mountain to see the dragon up close, and Yifa offered to follow him. But he instantly refused and told her to remain at the library. That evening, Yifa came by to Seika's room and told him that the prince had summoned her to his room, and because she was too scared to return to her room, Seika told her to spend the night in his room. When both of them were in bed, Seika asked Yifa if she was interested in Cecilio, but she went into tears as she claimed that Seika saw her as a burden, causing him to console her by explaining that joining a royal harem was an honor. She asked if he'd miss her if she took the offer, and he replied that he would, but stated that everyone at some point had to choose their path. When Seika woke up the next morning, he noticed that Yifa had already left his room, and Yuki told Seika that Yifa had loved him ever since they were little. Some hours later, Seika asked Cecilio why he summoned Yifa to his room that night, and he replied that he only wanted to talk to her. Cecilio offered to pay him $1 billion to have Yifa, but Seika refused his offer before informing him that he'd be going to check out the dragon's mountain. After Seika left for the mountain, Lies met up with Yifa and told her that she realized that Yifa was a descendant of elves because of the fact that the elementals brought them to each other. She asked her to join Cecilio's harem, but she refused, so Lies pointed out that Seika was a monster. Lies went even further with her gaslighting by bringing up the fact that elementals refused to go close to Seika the same way they avoid a demon's miasma. However, Yifa argued that Seika was human because of the fact that they grew up together, but Lies threw a curveball by asking if she was sure about his origin. Because of the fact that his mother was an unknown mistress, she said there was a possibility that he's a demon, but Yifa refused to believe that Seika was anything but a human. Despite her statements, Lies bluntly asked her to stay away from her dangerous master and offered her a tour of Cecilio's harem. At the same time, Seika arrived at the dragon's nest, and it immediately tried to roast him with a breath attack, but he blocked its attack easily with a magic barrier. It tried to crush him with its feet, but he quickly teleported out of the way before summoning a weird spirit that floored the dragon using a sonic wave attack. The attack left the dragon rattled, so Seika had no problem capturing it with a magic net he created as he walked towards the egg. Yuki asked how the dragon had an egg despite the fact that it was male, causing him to reveal that the dragon switched genders at some point after its partner died.
Magic.
He repositioned the egg to help its hatching process and noticed that the dragon was staring at them intensely. Meanwhile, Lies took Yifa to the different classrooms and sections of the mansion where Cecilio's baddies were being trained and revealed that Cecilio's mother, the queen, was a perfect ruler who was loved by the people. She explained that Cecilio was in a hurry to win glory for himself with the dragon matter and find a wife because he wanted to live up to the legacy of his mom. At the same time, Seika made some fire around the dragon's nest to help keep the egg warm, and this made the dragon like him so much that it held on to him when he tried to leave. Some minutes later, Lies and Yifa met up with Cecilio, who introduced them to some men named Good and Curtis, who presented the prince with a bunch of coins which, by their analysis, should be enough to buy Yifa's freedom from Seika. Cecilio told Yifa that he was officially liberating her, but she argued that he couldn't do it without Seika's approval. The prince refused to back down as he claimed that Seika had no choice but to approve because if he didn't, he'd issue an order to conscript all slaves to Protoster and force him to sell her to him. Yifa still argued that she didn't want to be free and the prince considered respecting her wishes, but Curtis advised him to force her to accept his offer, causing him to send some guards to hold her. She tried to fight back using her elementals, but Lies stopped her by covering the area in a magic barrier that negated her magic before creating a tiny cut on Yifa's thumb using wind magic. Just when she was about to place Yifa's bloody thumb on the contract, the dragon arrived and destroyed the magic barrier. Seika, who was riding on its back, announced that he's made friends with the dragon and asked Yifa to come with him to make the dragon nest warmer with her flame magic. Seeing this made Yifa so happy that she instantly ran towards him, and Lies tried to stop her, but she told her that she liked Seika as she joined him on the dragon and flew away with him. When they arrived at the nest, Sokka started explaining the situation with the dragon to her, but they were interrupted when Zect summoned his lava tiger to attack them. Seika stopped the tiger using ice pillars again and asked Zect to come out of his hiding spot after figuring out that he was after the dragon egg all along, so he came out along with the other mercenaries from his group. Zect ordered his tiger to attack them again, but Yifa stopped it in its tracks with a waterfall spell that pushed it away. Zect refused to back down, and instead ordered the tiger along with his entire group of assassins to take them down. But all it took was one white flame attack by Seika to roast the tiger into ashes. When Zect asked Seika who he was, Seika replied that he was the strongest sorcerer in the world, and when Zect commanded his soldiers to attack again, the dragon scared them off by simply standing in front of them. Seika stopped the assassins from running away by wrapping them in magic vines, and Yifa silenced Zect by burning his spell book into a crisp, causing Seika to complement her skills. After the battle, the mercenaries were arrested, and Seika explained to the prince that the dragon considered the people of the kingdom as its family before asking him to help hatch the dragon's egg. However, Cecilio refused and instead asked Seika to slay the dragon again. When Seika refused, Cecilio arrested him under the accusations of using his magic to make the dragon behave suspiciously. Seika decided to play along, but when the prince started pressuring Yifa to join him again, he slapped off his hand and scolded him for being a brat who only craved women and glory. He ended his rant by loudly claiming that he'd never give Yifa to someone like Cecilio, and Lies responded by telling the guards to put down their weapon before asking Yifa to say how she feels. Yifa rejected the prince once again.
Wow! Incredible!
So Lies told him to give up and apologize to Seika and Yifa for their rudeness. Afterwards, Lies and Yifa went to a private location where Lies gave Yifa some light elementals and wished her luck on her romantic journey with Seika. On their way back, Yifa told Seika that her ability to use elementals came from her elven lineage, and they had a conversion about there. Meanwhile, some demons were causing havoc in a particular village, including a powerful orc named Murderiva, an evil eye user named Pieslaria, a summoner bunny named Lonai, and a powerful demon named Ganis. The giant troll that protected the village was taken down by the Bankai of the leader of this villainous demon group named Zor, who swore to defeat the hero no matter what. Several days later, Seika asked Amiu to visit his family home with him during summer break because his father wanted to meet the swordswoman who could use all magical elements. When she agreed, he asked Mabel to come along as well, and after they left, he told Yuki that the one who really wanted to meet them was someone special who was currently staying at their mansion. Some days later, Seika arrived at the mansion with the girls and had a cheerful chat with Luft, which was unfortunately cut short when Glai made a loud entrance. Glai revealed that he was enjoying his time in the army, but also claimed he wasn't willing to let go of the humiliation he suffered at the hands of Seika, and therefore he challenged Seika to yet another duel. Yifa told Amiu that Glai was the sibling who used to bully her and Seika, so Amiu asked Glai to face her instead of Seika. Naturally, Glai wasn't having it, so Seika buttered him up by revealing that Amiu was much stronger than him, and he promised to face him if he defeated Amiu, causing him to agree. When the duel started, Amiu clashed swords intensely with Glai until he slipped, and when she tried to take the finishing blow, he tricked her into thinking he was about to use magic, which distracted her enough for him to knock her sword away. After their battle, Glai started demanding his duel with Seika when the princess who was staying with them, named Fiona, walked by and teased Glai so much that he decided to call off the match with Seika. When he introduced her to the girls as the Holy Princess, their jaws dropped, and as they all walked inside the mansion, Seika explained to Yuki that Fiona was handed the title of Holy Princess at birth because she bore the blood of both a priestess and the royal line. Fiona revealed that she wanted to see Amiu because she'd heard all of her accolades, and she thanked Seika for agreeing to grant her sudden request. She said she'd be staying a few more days at their mansion and asked them to accompany her on her way back to the capital, so Seika agreed once again to help her. During dinner that evening, Fiona told them about her wish to be reborn as something powerful like a dragon when she eventually passes, causing Seika to tell her about his experience with Asteria's dragon. When she asked if Yifa and Sokka were lovers, Yifa replied that she was only his servant, which made her tease them. Fiona brought up how the Academy accepted both commoners and nobles because they valued magic above everything, and when Amiyu revealed that Mabel was a commoner, she apologized for her rudeness. Seika asked Glai to have a duel with Mabel, but Mabel refused, saying she didn't want to fight with a rotten scumbag like him. As Seika's father watched them, he remembered a previous conversation he had with Yifa's dad Eddies, who was his personal butler. Back then, Eddies told him that he was mad because he sent Yifa to be the servant of his illegitimate child, and Mr. Lamperouge replied that it was okay because Seika was a good person. Back at the dinner table, Mr. Lamperouge thanked Seika for his efforts at Asteria and asked him about his school life before Mrs. Lamperouge surprisingly asked Seika to write home more often. Later that night, Seika was having a playful conversation with Yuki when Amiyu showed up in his room and asked what he intended to do when he got out of the lower grades. When he asked her about her own plans, she said she intended to go home to be an adventurer again since it was her only option, and he revealed that his aim was to join her in becoming an adventurer, just as he promised her during their dungeon raid. She promised to teach him all about adventuring since he was new to that world, and the two of them made another promise to have adventures with each other before she left. The next day, Seika was giving the princess a tour of the city, and Glai told him that Fiona left all her guards behind because she wanted to have fun, implying that they'd have to handle any issue that came up themselves. When they arrived at the market, Fiona held hands with Seika and asked Glai to get her some snacks, which he did. While eating the kebab, Seika and Amiyu told Fiona stories about adventurers who became lovers with damsels in distress they rescued, and she said she'd be interested in experiencing that kind of fantasy someday. They eventually got to a construction site where a piece of wood got loose right over the princess's head. Fortunately, Amiyu and Glai were able to save her using a combo of air and earth bending magic, and they complimented each other afterwards before scolding Seika for not doing anything. The princess started acting grumpy towards Seika, so he got her a present in the form of a pretty bandana which he put on her. He let her see how pretty she looked in a ponytail by creating a mirror using magic. Later that evening, Seika interrupted Glai's training session by bringing up the fact that Glai was a holy knight of Fiona's, and Glai expressed his suspicions that the princess only selected him because of some political agenda she has. He went further to reveal that the princess was once forbidden from leaving the house until she eventually broke free and became a candidate for the throne. When Seika asked how she achieved that, Glai revealed that she had the power to see the future because her mother was the oracle priestess who originally spoke the prophecy about the hero and the demon king. Glai warned him not to get too involved with her because she had her eye on the empire's future as well. The next morning, Fiona looked everywhere for Seika, but he avoided her using his paper dolls and went to the garden where Yuki asked if he could see the future the way Fiona could using his fortune-telling magic. Seika explained that fortune-telling and seeing the future are two different things because a fortune-teller needed tools and advanced information, meaning there was a limit to how much they could learn. When Yuki asked if Fiona could become a problem for him, Seika replied that it was okay so long as he didn't get too involved with her. Minutes later, Seika met Amiyu in the garden, and she told him about how she just lost about 100 sparring matches to Glai, which made him wonder why she couldn't beat his idiotic brother despite her status as the hero. When he told her he was hiding from the princess, Amiyu advised him to go spend a bit of time with her because they were going to leave the mansion the next day. Hearing this, Seika joined Fiona on the roof for a game of chess, and because of the fact that she was basically the Goku of chess, she decided to nerf herself against the beginner by playing fewer pieces. Fiona suggested a bet in which the loser had to do whatever the winner said, and Seika agreed with this arrangement. During their chess match, Fiona asked Seika what he thought the strongest pieces on the chessboard were, and he replied that the strongest pieces were them, the players, because they controlled all the other pieces and couldn't be unalived on the board. Fiona thought it was a brilliant answer, but gave a different point of view, which was that the most powerful piece on the chessboard was actually the empty space on the table, because it represented the people of the kingdom who watched all the political events in the real world. Seika said the people didn't have any real power because they were usually silenced by the government. But Fiona argued that they did because all of the power the government had came through taxes and the efforts of the people, which was why they could never destroy the masses. Seika eventually revealed that he knew about her foresight ability and presumed that she knew about all the events that had happened between them so far before they even happened. She felt thankful to Glai for telling him because she didn't know how to do it herself, and she told him that her goal with her power was to live her life the way she wanted. When she pointed out that Sokka was about to lose the match, he said he wouldn't back down until the end, but when she foresaw that he'd be cooked in 7 moves, he instantly threw in the towel. After a bit of small talk, Seika asked her to make him trust her more by telling him a weakness of hers, so she revealed that she was scared of stew because it once gave her the nastiest case of diarrhea, and this made Seika laugh out loud. Fiona switched to a more serious tone by telling him that she secretly desired to save someone who was in trouble using her abilities, and Seika decided to support this dream of hers by offering to help her in any way that he could. Elsewhere, the demon group from earlier were feasting after destroying a group of adventurers, but Zor refused to join them in eating because he felt that they did most of the work. Zor told his gang to replenish their strengths and thought about how his ability to see others' strengths would help him accomplish his goals. The next day, Luft said his goodbyes to Seika and the girls, and they boarded a carriage along with Fiona and Glai to make their way to the capital. On their way, Seika asked Glai if it was okay for him to be with them since he was the captain of the soldiers, and he replied that it was fine because his main priority was protecting the princess. Just then, a group of bandits blew up one of their empty carriages, causing Seika to leap out of the carriage he was in. The bandits fired arrows at him from all angles, but Seika blocked them easily using a smoke spell, and when the mages among the bandits tried to attack using magic, he blocked them even more easily using a barrier. The bandit leader decided to mobilize his swordsmen, but unfortunately for him, Glai and his soldiers were right there to face them. During their fight, Fiona asked Seika to take the enemies alive, so he used his vines to capture all of them. Afterwards, Fiona thanked Seika for capturing the assassins and confessed that she needed them alive to use as evidence against her political schemes. She also confessed that she foresaw the events before they took place, which was why she had them carry decoy carriages which would ensure that the chaos didn't ruin their trip. When they got to the capital, Fiona said her goodbyes to Seika before telling him that she'd always be on his side no matter what, and this made him realize that something chaotic would soon happen. Some days later, the principal asked Seika to represent the current student body during the welcome ceremony for new students, which was a huge honor in that part of the world, and Sokka accepted her offer. On his way back to his dorm, Yuki reminded him that taking a public role like that one could have him in a position where he'd have to stand out again, but he argued that it was more normal than she thought. He expressed how happy he'd felt in his journey so far at the academy and told Yuki that he now decides to live a normal life where he was no longer scared of standing out. She asked if he intended to run away and not get involved if anything crazy happens, and Seika replied that he'd handle it somehow without letting himself be seen. Several minutes later, Zor and his party arrived at the school, and Zor went over their plan, which was to drive all the students towards the center building from all 4 directions and continue their slaughter there. He instructed them to use their dedicated magic items to send a signal if they saw anyone who looked like they could be the hero, and the contingency plan was that if they didn't find anyone who resembled the hero, they should cause enough chaos to draw the hero out. After his speech, the demon party teleported into the school using a portal, but Ganes landed in a particular spot that was strangely covered by red fog. When he saw some students walking by, he fired a massive flame spell at them in an attempt to avenge his brother Gull. But when he came by to check out their roasted corpses, he noticed something strange. At the same time, Lonai and Pieslaria were walking through another section of the foggy area, and Pieslaria told Lonai that she noticed that he'd improved so much with his tamer ability to the point where she felt he was even stronger than her. Lonai said he once felt like he was unbeatable because he was the most powerful tamer in his village until he met Zor and Mudarev, who showed him just how weak he was. When Pieslaria said she was feeling insecure about her power level, Lonai brought up the fact that she was the most powerful person in her village as well. But she claimed her powers were useless in times of peace and caused her to sleep constantly. However, she was excited about that day because she couldn't wait to tell her parents that she defeated the hero, and their little heart-to-heart was cut short when they spotted a student creeping in the nearby forest. Lonai immediately summoned some shadow wolves which he sent after the student, and when he called the wolves back, they gave him something strange which they found. Elsewhere, Mudaref was trying to navigate the school when Mabel made a dramatic entrance by throwing some daggers which he ended up blocking. After he introduced himself to her, she asked who hired him, pointing out that there was no one like him in the Merchants Association where she grew up, but he expressed that he had no idea what she was yapping about. Mabel tried to slash him apart with her axe, but he blocked and jumped in the air to land his own heavy attack, which Mabel managed to evade. He tried several more times to bash her skull in, but Mabel swiftly dodged his attacks and tried to destroy him with a heavy slash that missed him by a hair. After seeing how swiftly she moved despite having a weapon that was heavier than Thor's hammer, he decided that she was a worthy opponent, and when he tried to slash him again, he blocked and flung her away. She threw some daggers into his arm and he laughed, thinking they were harmless, but suddenly some dark vines appeared from the daggers and tied him up. Mabel thought she'd won, but unfortunately the mad ogre ripped through her vines like nothing and revealed that he had resistance to all magic elements before telling her to fight him with power and not tricks. She threw several more daggers at him, but he deflected them easily before launching another heavy attack which seemingly destroyed her. However, when the smoke cleared, Murderev was stunned as he saw a paper doll on the floor instead of Mabel. Afterwards, all the members of the demon party met at a particular spot and revealed that they all found paper dolls during their patrol. Zor felt that something was wrong with their mission and suggested they retreat. But before they could move a muscle, Seika made the most auriful entrance imaginable. He sat on a floating magic circle and revealed that every single person the demons had faced so far were his Shikigami, apart from Mudarev, who faced the real Mabel. Mudarev started yapping about how badly he wanted to face a powerful opponent like Seika, but Seika clapped him in the blink of an eye by beheading a voodoo doll he made of him. In an attempt to retaliate, Prislaria created a giant evil eye magic circle which was meant to turn Seika into stone. But Seika pulled an insane Uno reverse by summoning a giant snake spirit that stopped her heart with a single stare. Lonai took action by summoning his own giant snake demon to face off against the white snake spirit, but all it took was one state to unalive it. Lonai's plan B was an attempt to tame the giant snake spirit, but that idea went up in flames as well because the snake swallowed him alive. Zor realized that his party never stood a chance at defeating Sokka. And when Ganis asked to distract Seika so he could get away, Zor suggested doing the opposite. When Ganis asked who Seika was, Zor replied that he was the Demon King and told him to rush back home to tell the demon race what they encountered. Seika said they had no chance of unaliving Amiyu because he was the one protecting her. And this made Zor lose his mind because now it was clear that they were cooked because the Demon King had joined the side of the humans. Following Zor's request, Ganis escaped with teleportation magic, and Zor tried to hold Seika off, but he ended up getting obliterated by a huge wave of lava. Ganis made his way to the forest, but unfortunately he couldn't make it any further because Seika destroyed him from a distance by stabbing a paper doll he made of him. After the battle, Mabel met up with Seika and asked about Mudareva, making him realize that the spell he previously cast in the area to keep the students away didn't work on her because of the fact that she had a strong goal in mind. Seika calmed her down and informed her that the villains, who were after the hero, had already been dealt with by him before telling her to keep the whole ordeal a secret. Later that evening, Seika and the girls were chilling at the school ceremony when some knights showed up and introduced themselves as Durak knights who worked for a guy named Marquis Greville. The commander informed Amiyu that she committed a crime against the Empire by slaying a demon emissary who visited the academy and ordered his men to arrest her. Mabel and Yifa attempted to fight back on Amiyu's behalf, but Seika stopped them and assured Amiyu that she'd be released in no time because she was innocent. The guards attempted to attack him, But their commander stopped them by reminding them that nobles attended the academy, and they all walked out of the school with Amiyu in handcuffs. The next day, Seika informed the principal about Amiyu's arrest and presumed that it was because the Empire was trying to come up with a reason to unalive the hero. The principal revealed that she was applying pressure on the imperial court from all angles and told Seika to wait for the good news. When she told him not to have any ideas, Seika left her speechless by asking if she was certain that her plan would beat fruit before the hero mysteriously gets unalived. Afterwards, Seika met up with Mabel and Yifa and quelled their concerns about the matter by revealing that the principal had already set things in motion before telling them that he didn't intend to interfere as well. Despite his earlier claim, Seika summoned his dragon Ruu in an attempt to save Amiyu, but before he could take action, Yuki suggested that it was smarter to give up on saving Amiyu. When he asked her reason for saying so, she explained that he was about to unleash his power on the nation's most important people, which would no doubt attract attention to him and maybe lead to his death like it did in the real world. However, Seika angrily replied that it didn't matter because he could simply unalive anyone who saw his power, and Yuki's further attempts to snap him back to his senses failed as he hopped aboard Ruu and flew to the capital. Several minutes later, Seika arrived at the castle and scattered his Shikigami around the area, which allowed him to easily locate Amiyu in her jail cell. He walked to the front door where he was attacked by a group of bow-wielding guards, and he easily blocked their arrow attacks by surrounding himself with magical smoke. When they tried to launch a second wave of attack, he took them out by dropping massive boulders on them and destroyed a second wave of archers who attacked him using a combination of several overpowered spells. When he reached Amiyu's jail cell, he melted the bars and asked her to run away with him, but she expressed her concerns that his family could get into danger because of his actions. She told him to leave, but Seika refused and revealed to her that she was the hero from the stories who was destined to defeat the Demon King. He explained that the reason she was being targeted was because of the fact that people always feared and tried to unalive those who have overwhelming power the same way they did to him in his previous life. Just then, Glai showed up alongside Fiona, and Seika instantly realized that Fiona had already seen that moment ahead of time. Fiona revealed that her plan was to answer his questions and also to make him accept her offer, so he asked why she intended to unalive Amiyu, knowing that it would leave the humans at a great disadvantage against the demons. In response, she narrated how the hero used to be the one to purge all the demons in the past and said that things had changed because in the current world, the demons now had armies, which meant that a single hero couldn't take them down. When Seika asked why they couldn't ignore her instead of unaliving her, Fiona explained that her existence alone was enough to start a war between humans and demons, which was something that even the demons didn't want. She added that Amiyu could never attain the power of the last hero because Seika was around to prevent Amiyu from going through the hardships that normally helped heroes of the past gain their power. However, Seika still argued that it was wrong to let her die for the sake of peace, so Fiona revealed that she and the Academy authorities were doing their best to protect her from that fate. She begged Seika to leave the castle, assuring him that she'd ensure Amiyu's safety as well as his freedom, and brought up the deal they made during their chess match. Seika said he couldn't trust Fiona enough to leave Amiyu in the castle, so Fiona led both of them to a carriage which would take them to a free city she arranged for them. When Amiyu revealed that Fiona comforted her during her time in the jail cell, Seika felt bad about his earlier attitude, so he apologized to Fiona for not honoring the promise he made during their chess match. He ended up delaying the favor by using his spirit powers to resurrect all the soldiers which he previously unalived. After Seika and Amiyu left, Fiona told a demon who was hiding in her shadow that Seika was the Demon King of their generation, causing him to ask why the Demon King would protect a hero. Fiona replied that it was because Amiyu was precious to Seika, and because Seika was someone who couldn't stop himself from helping people even if he knew death awaited him at the end of that path. Several days later, Seika and Amiyu arrived at the city of Rachna in full adventurer gear, and they had a tearful reunion with Yifa and Mabel. So between Yifa, Amiyu, and Mabel, who do you think our Demon King Saka is going to attack in bed first? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.